My ex-wife slept with our neighbor and tried to convince me that everyone cheats. I'm Gerald, and I've been watching your channel for a while now. I've heard hundreds of stories from men all around the world, some worse, some eerily familiar. You never really expect to end up in one of those "it happened to me" situations until it's you sitting in the ruins of what you thought was forever. I want to tell you about how my marriage ended, how my ex-wife betrayed me, how I found out, and the twisted way she tried to justify what she did. She actually had the nerve to tell me that everyone cheats and that couples who say their vows under God should work through it, as if her actions were some sort of test of faith, not a deliberate choice to destroy the trust and love we built. Let me start from the beginning, how we met. I met my ex-wife Camille at this little Mediterranean restaurant downtown. It wasn't a fancy place, just one of those spots with good hummus, grilled chicken wraps, and a quiet, calm vibe. I went there one afternoon during my lunch break. I work in construction management, so I'm often on site, but that day I'd finished early and wanted to sit down and enjoy a meal for once. She was my server. I'll never forget it. She walked up with that radiant smile, curly brown hair tied up loosely, and these striking hazel eyes that almost stopped me mid-bite. She was easily one of the most beautiful women I'd ever seen in person. I remember thinking she looked like someone who had stepped out of a painting, graceful, confident, and sharp-tongued in a playful way. From the moment she took my order, I could tell she was flirting. It wasn't just the usual waitress niceness. She kept coming back to the table, asking if I needed refills when my glass was full, brushing her hair behind her ear when she talked to me, and giving me this little smirk that made it impossible not to flirt back. When I paid the bill, she wrote her number on the receipt and said, "If you ever need a tour guide for the city's best food, I'm available." I laughed, thanked her, and told her I'd take her up on that. I texted her that night, and we ended up talking for hours. It's crazy how fast everything can seem perfect in the beginning, the early days. Our first date was the next week. We went to a small art fair downtown, then walked along the waterfront and talked about everything. Our childhoods, goals, favorite shows, family stories. She told me about her parents' divorce when she was young and how it made her wary of relationships. I could tell she had walls up, but she was trying. I admired that about her. We started dating seriously within a few weeks. Things moved fast, but it felt natural. She'd call me my safe space. I'd come home after work and she'd be waiting for me with dinner or curled up on the couch watching some crime show. I thought I hit the jackpot. She was attentive, affectionate, and for a while, it felt like she was truly happy. But every story like this has that one red flag moment that you brush off, thinking love will fix it. For me, it was her trust issues. Her trust issues. Camille had this deep-rooted insecurity that I didn't really understand at first. She accused me of cheating at least 3 times in our first 6 months together. Once because a female coworker texted me, "Thanks," for covering a shift. Another time because I liked a friend's photo on social media. And the last time because I didn't answer her call during a work meeting. Every time I'd try to reassure her. I'd show her my phone, explain what really happened, and try to calm her down. Sometimes she'd cry, sometimes she'd get angry, and sometimes she'd give me the silent treatment for days. Most men would have walked away, and looking back, maybe I should have. But I loved her. I thought her insecurity came from being hurt in the past, and I believed if I stayed patient and consistent, she'd learn to trust me. And for a while it worked, building a life together. 2 years after we met, we got married. It was a small ceremony, about 60 people. We said our vows in church, exchanged rings, and promised each other forever. I meant every word I said that day. I truly believed we were building something sacred. Marriage wasn't perfect, but we made it work. We bought a modest home in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind of place where neighbors mow their lawns on weekends. People wave when they drive by, and kids ride their bikes up and down the street. One of our neighbors, a guy named Rick, lived 2 houses down. I'd known him before I even met Camille. We'd shared beers during cookouts, helped each other with yard work, even watched football together. He was a good dude, or so I thought. The shift. The first few years of marriage were good. Camille got more comfortable, and her trust issues seemed to fade. She'd tell me she finally felt secure with me, and I believed her. We laughed a lot, went on little road trips, and made our house a home. But around year 4, things started to feel different. It began subtly. She started taking her phone everywhere. She'd always leave it on the counter before, but suddenly she'd carry it around like it was glued to her. When I'd walk into a room, she'd tilt the screen away. If a notification popped up, she'd flip the phone face down. Then she started taking her phone into the bathroom when she showered. When I asked why, she said, "I like to play music while I shower." That might have made sense if she had ever done that before, but she hadn't. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was imagining things, that maybe she just wanted privacy. But you know how gut instincts work. Once that seed of doubt is planted, it grows. The bathroom moment. One evening, she was in the shower and I went in to use the bathroom. The door was unlocked, so I figured it wasn't a big deal. The moment I stepped in, she peeked out from behind the curtain and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Just peeing. Relax." But she kept her eyes on me, glancing at the sink's sick-over counter where her phone was sitting. I noticed the screen was lit up, like she'd just been messaging someone. When I turned to wash my hands, she literally reached her arm out from behind the curtain and grabbed her phone. That's when it hit me. She wasn't listening to music. That moment was burned into my mind. That night, when she fell asleep, I made the decision to look through her phone. I already knew her passcode. She'd given it to me years ago when we used to share stuff openly. I waited until she was snoring lightly, and I opened it. The truth, I didn't even have to dig far. Her messages with Rick were right there, my neighbor, my so-called friend. It started with casual talk, things like, "You're funny, and don't tell Gerald I said that." Then it got more flirtatious. There were messages about how lonely she felt, and him saying, "I could make you feel better." The more I scrolled, the worse it got. There were pictures, voice notes, and explicit messages that made my stomach turn. They'd been sleeping together for months, sometimes in his house when his girlfriend was out of town, sometimes in ours when I was working late, and she told him she wished she'd met him first. He told her he envied me. I remember sitting there, staring at the phone, my chest tight, my hands shaking. I wanted to throw the phone across the room, but I didn't. I just sat there, numb. The confrontation. The next morning I couldn't even look at her, but I had to say something. So after breakfast, I asked her straight up, "How long have you been sleeping with Rick?" She froze. Her eyes widened, and for a few seconds, she didn't say anything. Then she started crying. Not the kind of crying you do when you're sorry, but the kind you do when you're caught. She tried to deny it at first, but when I told her I saw everything, she dropped the act. She admitted to it. She said it started innocently, that they just talked, and one thing led to another. Then she said something that made my blood boil. She said, "Gerald, everyone cheats. Couples who love each other and made vows before God worked through it. You can't throw everything away over a mistake." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was actually trying to spiritualize her betrayal, like cheating was some kind of test of our marriage, not the end of it. I told her, "You broke our vows the second you decided to be with another man. Don't bring God into this." She cried harder and tried to hug me, but I pushed her away. Where I stand now. That was the day everything changed. The woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. Since then, my life's been turned upside down. After she confessed, things were tense. Camille stayed quiet most of the day. I remember she sat at the kitchen table, staring at her phone, occasionally wiping her eyes. Every once in a while, she'd glance at me and try to say something. but I wasn't ready to talk. My mind was racing. I couldn't stop thinking about how I'd let this man into my home, introduced him to my wife, and trusted him around me. And all that time, he was sneaking behind my back. That night, I slept on the couch, or tried to. I kept replaying the moment I read those messages, the way she had smiled while texting, the way she'd taken her phone into the bathroom, the way she'd said, "Everyone cheats." It was all echoing in my head. The next morning, I woke up early. My eyes burned from not sleeping. Camille came into the living room, wrapped in her robe, holding a mug of coffee. She sat on the other couch and said softly, "Can we talk about this?" I didn't even look at her. I said, "What's there to talk about?" She started crying again, saying, "Gerald, please, we can go to therapy. We can fix this. We've built a life together." I looked at her and said, "You built a lie, not a life." She tried to argue, saying that she didn't mean to hurt me, that she'd just been feeling emotionally disconnected. That was her favorite phrase that week, emotionally disconnected, as if that excused her from spreading her legs for another man. I told her I needed space, and I left the house. I drove around aimlessly for hours, thinking about everything, my marriage, my home, my future. And every road I took led to one conclusion. I couldn't stay with her. Facing the neighbor. When I finally got home later that day, I didn't go inside. Instead, I parked the car and walked straight down the street to Rick's house. He was outside, of all things, washing his damn truck. I saw him look up, see me walking toward him, and freeze. He knew why I was there. I walked right up to him and said, "You got something you want to say to me, Rick?" He started stammering. "Gerald, man, listen. I didn't even let him finish. I swung and hit him square in the jaw. He stumbled back, hit the side of his truck, and tried to push me off, but I was too angry to stop. Years of trust, friendship, and respect. All of it went up in smoke because of his selfishness." His girlfriend, who must have been inside, came running out screaming, "Stop it! Stop it!" Rick shouted, "I'm sorry, it just happened, man." That made me angrier. I shouted, "It didn't just happen. You planned it. You waited until I trusted you, and then you betrayed me." He kept saying, "It's not what you think." But it was exactly what I thought. I'd seen the messages, the pictures, the voice notes. I knew everything. After a minute, I backed away, breathing heavy, my hands shaking. His lip was bleeding, and his eye was starting to swell. I wasn't proud of what I did, but I also wasn't sorry. Before I left, I told him, "Stay the hell away from me and my wife. Actually, no, she's not even my wife anymore. She's your problem now." The fallout. When I walked back home, Camille was waiting by the front door, tears streaming down her face. I could tell she'd heard or seen what happened. She asked, "Did you go over there?" I said, "Yeah," and I told him exactly what I think of both of you. She started sobbing again, saying, "You shouldn't have done that." I told her, "You shouldn't have slept with him." That was the last conversation we had before I packed a bag and left. I went to stay with my brother for a few days. I needed to clear my head and figure out my next steps. My brother's been through a divorce himself, so he didn't judge. He just handed me a beer and said, "You're doing the right thing by walking away." He was right. During that time, Camille kept blowing up my phone. I ignored most of her messages, but one night I decided to read them. She said things like, "You can't throw this away over a mistake. I love you more than anything. You're the only man I've ever really loved. Please, let's get help." I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. The kick out. A few days later, I went back to the house. I told Camille I was coming so she wouldn't accuse me of ambushing her or something. When I got there, she was sitting on the couch, mascara running down her face, tissues scattered around her. I told her calmly, "You need to pack your things and leave." She looked up, eyes wide. "What? You're kicking me out?" I said, "You made your choice when you decided to cheat. I'm not living with someone who betrayed me in my own home." She started begging again, saying, "Please don't do this. We can work through this. I said, no, Camille. I can't look at you without seeing him. Every time I walk into this house, I'll think about what you did. This is done. She got angry then. The crying stopped and the bitterness came out. You're throwing away everything we built. You think divorce will make you happy? You'll regret this. I said, I already regret marrying you. That shut her up. She packed her things in silence. It took about 2 hours. When she finally walked out with her suitcases, she turned around at the door and said, You're really not going to forgive me. I said, You didn't ask for forgiveness. You asked for permission to keep doing what you were doing without consequences. She looked like she wanted to say something else, but didn't. She just walked out, serving the papers. A few weeks went by after she moved out. I'd filed for divorce by then, but she hadn't signed anything. She kept dodging calls from my lawyer and pretending she needed more time. I was tired of waiting. I wanted closure. So, one day, I decided to do something I never thought I'd do. I had her served at her job. She worked at a dentist's office as a receptionist. I called the process server, gave them her work address, and told them to deliver it in person. I don't know if it was petty or just justice, but something in me needed her to face the reality of what she'd done. The process server told me later that she looked shocked when she got the papers. Apparently, she tried to play dumb, saying, "What's this?" even though she knew exactly what it was. That same night, she texted me a paragraph. "I can't believe you'd humiliate me like that at work. I didn't deserve that. You're being cruel, Gerald. We were supposed to be forever. You said you'd never give up on me." I didn't respond. I'd already given up enough of my peace trying to fix something that she broke. Life after her. But the months after the divorce were rough. I won't sugarcoat it. There were nights I couldn't sleep. Days where I'd come home from work and feel the weight of the silence in the house. It's one thing to lose a marriage. It's another to realize that everything you thought was real was built on a lie. But over time, that silence turned into peace. I started focusing on myself again. I stopped checking her social media too. At first, I was obsessed with seeing what she was doing. Was she with Rick? Was she miserable? Was she happy? But eventually I realized it didn't matter. Her life wasn't my concern anymore. The aftermath with the neighbor. As for Rick, he ended up moving not long after everything came out. I heard through the grapevine that his girlfriend left him too when she found out what he did. Karma, I guess. The funny part is, Camille tried to contact me months later. She called from a different number, left a voicemail saying, "I just wanted to say I miss you, and I hope you're okay." I didn't return the call. You know, before all this, I used to think cheating was something that only happened in movies or to people who didn't communicate. I thought, if you love someone enough and you're honest, it won't happen. But now I know that cheating isn't about love. It's about selfishness, entitlement, and lack of accountability. Camille didn't cheat because I wasn't good enough. She cheated because she thought she could and that she'd get away with it. Lessons learned. If there's one thing this whole ordeal taught me, it's that peace is better than partnership built on lies. When I look back, there were signs I ignored. Her insecurities weren't just about past trauma. They were projection. She accused me because she was the one capable of doing what she feared. And once she got comfortable, she proved it. People always say, marriage takes work. That's true. But it shouldn't take self-betrayal. It shouldn't require you to accept disrespect just to keep the peace. I gave her love, loyalty, and forgiveness until I couldn't anymore. Now I'm rebuilding. I bought new furniture, repainted the house, and started to feel like myself again. I even took a solo trip last month to clear my mind. Being away from everything helped me realize how much I'd lost, trying to hold on to someone who didn't value me. Final thoughts for now. I know this story sounds like a lot of other ones you've probably read, but the pain is always personal when it's your story. It's one thing to hear about infidelity. It's another to live through it and come out on the other side. When she told me everyone cheats, she revealed who she really was, not just someone who made a mistake, but someone who lacked morals, someone who wanted to normalize betrayal so she wouldn't feel guilty. If anyone reading or listening to this is in a situation where your gut is telling you something's off, trust it. Don't let someone gaslight you into believing that you're crazy, jealous, or insecure. Sometimes your intuition is the Holy Spirit warning you. I thought I was losing everything when I lost her, but the truth is, I was gaining peace. I've spent the last year rebuilding myself, emotionally, financially, and spiritually. I was at peace. At least I thought I was, until a few weeks ago when Camille and her family came crawling back into my life, and not because they wanted to apologize, not because they wanted closure, but because they wanted money. The message I didn't expect. It was a random Tuesday afternoon. I had just gotten home from work. I'd kicked off my boots, grabbed a beer, and sat down to relax. Life had been steady lately, quiet, predictable, peaceful. Then my phone buzzed. I looked down and I couldn't believe the name on the screen. It was Camille's mom, Lydia. Now Lydia had always been kind to me during the marriage, at least in the beginning. She used to say things like, "You're the best thing that ever happened to my daughter." But after the divorce, she took Camille's side completely. She told people I abandoned her daughter during a hard time. She even blocked me on Facebook. So, seeing her name pop up after all this time was strange. I hesitated before opening the message, but curiosity got the better of me. Here's what it said. "Hi, Gerald. I know this is out of the blue, but we really need your help. I wouldn't reach out if it wasn't serious. Can you please give me a call when you have a moment?" I stared at it for a good minute. We need your help. That line stood out like a neon sign. My first thought was that something had happened to Camille. Maybe she was sick or got into trouble, but the way Lydia phrased it didn't sound medical. It sounded financial. I set the phone down, finished my beer, and told myself I wasn't going to call back. But that little voice in my head kept saying, "What if it's serious?" So, about an hour later, I gave in. The call. When Lydia picked up, her voice was all nervous and polite. "Gerald, oh my goodness, I'm so glad you called. How have you been, sweetheart?" I said, "I've been fine, Lydia. What's going on?" She hesitated for a second and then sighed heavily. "Well, it's about the restaurant." Now, for context, her family owns a small Mediterranean restaurant, the same one where I met Camille years ago. It was their family business, something her parents had run for decades. That place used to be their pride and joy. I said, "What about it?" She said, "We're in trouble, Gerald. Business hasn't been the same since the pandemic, and we've been behind on payments. If we don't come up with $15,000 in the next 30 days, the bank is going to close us down." I kept quiet. I could feel where this conversation was headed. Then she said it, the line that confirmed everything. "Gerald, I know it's a lot to ask, but we were wondering if you could help us. You've always been so responsible with money, and I know you have a good heart. You were family once." I almost laughed out loud. "You were family once?" After her daughter cheated on me, tried to gaslight me, and acted like I was the problem. I took a deep breath and said, "Lydia, I'm sorry to hear about the restaurant, but I don't think I'm the right person to ask." She started pleading. "Gerald, please. I know what Camille did was terrible. I told her myself she ruined a good man. But this business means everything to our family. You know how much that place meant to her father before he passed." I stayed silent for a few seconds. Then I said, "Where's Camille in all this?" She said softly, "She's here." She didn't want to reach out directly because she didn't think you'd talk to her. She was right about that. The face-to-face. 2 days later, I was at the grocery store when I ran into someone I didn't expect, Camille herself. She looked different. Not terrible, but definitely not like the woman I remembered. Her hair was shorter, darker. She had bags under her eyes and looked stressed out. When she saw me, She froze for a moment and then gave this hesitant little wave. Gerald, she said quietly. I said, Camille. There was this long, awkward silence between us. Then she said, Did my mom talk to you? I nodded. Yeah, she did. She sighed. I was hoping she wouldn't. I told her it was a bad idea. I said, But you didn't stop her. She looked down at the floor. We're just desperate, Gerald. The restaurant's all we have left. We're behind on rent. The suppliers cut us off, and the landlord gave us a 30-day notice. We need $15,000 to stay open. I said flatly. And you think I'm going to give it to you? She looked up at me, eyes glossy with tears. I don't expect you to do it for me. I'm asking you to do it for my mom. You know how much that restaurant means to her. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This woman, the same woman who cheated on me, who tried to gaslight me with Bible verses, was now asking me for money to bail out her family's business. I said, Camille, when you and I were married, that restaurant meant a lot to me too. I helped with repairs, marketing, even the website, but you destroyed every bit of trust I ever had in you. You don't get to come back into my life when you need something. She whispered, Please, Gerald, I'm not asking for me. I'm asking for them. I said, You're asking because you're broke. Don't lie to me. She wiped her tears and said, If we lose the restaurant, we lose everything. My mom could lose her house. Please, can't you loan it to us just until we get back on our feet? I shook my head. You didn't think about getting back on your feet when you were sneaking around with my neighbor. Her face turned red. That was years ago. I said, and it still happened. Then I walked away. The guilt trip. Over the next week, Lydia and even Camille's brother, Maxwell, started reaching out. Maxwell texted me, Hey man, I know things went bad between you and my sister, but can you please consider helping Mom? She's sick over this restaurant situation. You'd be saving our family. It was surreal. Like they all had selective memory about what Camille did. They were talking to me like I was still their son-in-law, like we could just brush everything under the rug and play happy family again. I ignored the first few messages, but Lydia wouldn't quit. She left voicemails saying things like, I know you're hurt, Gerald, but this isn't about Camille. It's about family. You've always been a man of God, and I believe He put you in our lives for a reason. If you help us, it'll show what kind of man you truly are. That last one pissed me off. She was trying to guilt trip me into saving them, using God and morality as leverage. Finally, I texted her back and said, Lydia, I'm sorry your restaurant is struggling. I truly am, but I'm not responsible for fixing it. Camille and I are divorced, and I've moved on with my life. I wish you the best, but please don't contact me again about this. Her reply came 10 minutes later. Wow, I didn't realize you could be so cold, Gerald. I thought you were different. Cold. That's what she called me. Funny because I wasn't cold when I was pouring my heart out trying to fix a marriage her daughter destroyed. I wasn't cold when I walked away instead of retaliating, but now that I won't hand over $15,000, now I'm cold. Word got around. A few days later, a mutual friend from church texted me and said, Hey man, did you hear what Camille's mom's been saying about you? I said, No, what? He said, She's telling people you refused to help them when they were in need, saying you're bitter and still holding a grudge. I just laughed. Let her talk, I said. The truth doesn't need defending, but still, it stung. The same people who once told me I was a blessing to their family were now painting me as the villain because I wouldn't bail them out. Reflection. I thought about it for days. Part of me, deep down, still felt bad for Lydia. She really was a sweet woman before all this, and I know the restaurant was her late husband's dream. It wasn't just a business, it was their family's legacy. But here's the thing. Helping them would have meant betraying myself. It would have meant ignoring everything I went through, everything I learned, and everything I promised myself after the divorce. that I would never again be someone's safety net after they've thrown me away. I spent years trying to be the good man everyone expected me to be, the forgiving man, the one who carries other people's burdens, even when they've stabbed him in the back. But I realized that sometimes being a good man means having boundaries. You can forgive someone and still not save them. You can wish someone well and still walk away. What happened next? About 3 weeks after Lydia's message, I heard through the grapevine that the restaurant officially closed. They couldn't come up with the money. The landlord changed the locks, and everything inside, the furniture, the equipment, the decor, got seized. Camille made a post online about it, a long paragraph about the end of an era, family traditions, and how hard it is to say goodbye. Not once did she mention accountability or gratitude, just self-pity. I didn't comment. I didn't even like the post. I just read it and kept scrolling. A few people in the comments said things like, "You'll rebuild and stay strong." But I could tell most people knew the truth, that years of mismanagement, bad choices, and entitlement had caught up to them. Peace at last. That whole situation reminded me how far I've come. A few years ago, I would have felt obligated to help. I would have written that check out of guilt or pity, thinking it was the Christian thing to do. Now, I understand that peace sometimes looks like saying no. I don't hate Camille or her family. I really don't. I just don't owe them anything. They had a good man who would have done anything for them. They had love, loyalty, and commitment, and they traded it all for convenience and pride. When you make choices like that, you have to live with the consequences. Final thoughts. I guess this part of my story isn't about betrayal. It's about closure, about standing firm when life tempts you to go backward. People love to show up when they need something, but true character is revealed in how they treated you when they didn't. Camille's family had no problem turning their backs on me when I divorced her, but the moment they needed saving, they remembered who I was. And the truth is, I'm still that same man. Still kind, still generous, still willing to help the right people. But I'm no one's backup plan anymore. If you're reading this and you've ever been in a situation where someone from your past tries to crawl back into your life after breaking you, remember, you don't owe them a thing. Compassion doesn't mean compliance. Forgiveness doesn't mean funding their recovery. I closed that chapter, and I intend to keep it that way.